Dad, perfect revents. Who did this to you? I gripped the cold metal bed rail so hard my knuckles went white. The hospital smell hit me like a punch. That mix of disinfectant and despair that takes you right back to the worst moments of your life. I stared down at my daughter Beverly and felt something inside me turn to pure ice. Her face was a mess, left eye swollen shut, bruises around her throat in the shape of fingers, her arm in a cast, and when she tried to smile at me, I could see she was missing a tooth in the back. I'm Harold Bennett, 67 years old, and I spent 35 years as a financial crimes detective. I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. Beverly broke down the second I spoke. "Dad," she whispered. "It was Nelson. He lost big at the casino again. His mother Marie held me while he—" She couldn't finish, but she didn't need to. I'd worked domestic violence cases for decades. I knew the signs. The rage that flooded through me wasn't hot. It was cold, calculated. The kind of anger that doesn't explode. It plans. "Very well," I said quietly. Nelson Sullivan just made the biggest mistake of his life. Beverly's good eye went wide. "Dad, no. You don't understand. They'll hurt Dorothy. They'll hurt you. Please just stay away from them." I touched her cheek, the only part that wasn't bruised. "Trust me, sweetheart. I'm not the old man they think I am. How had I let this happen? How had Harold Bennett, 35-year police veteran, been locked away in Sunset Manor while my daughter was being systematically destroyed? The answer sat like a stone in my gut. It had all started 6 months ago when Nelson convinced Beverly I was getting confused and needed professional care. The nursing home was a prison with better food. Nelson had tricked me into signing papers. Power of attorney, he said, just in case something happened. Then suddenly I'm incompetent, my assets are frozen, and I'm stuck in a place that smells like boiled cabbage and broken dreams. But I wasn't helpless. I was just waiting for the right moment. The call came at 6:15 a.m. The front desk nurse knocked on my door. "Mr. Bennett, there's a call for you. It's Central Hospital." The voice on the other end was professional, careful. "Is this Harold Bennett, father of Beverly Sullivan?" "Yes. Your daughter has been admitted to the emergency department. She fell down the stairs. We need you to come in." Fell down the stairs. Right. In my 35 years on the force, I never met a woman who fell down the stairs, who actually fell down the stairs. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, and hung up. But there was a problem. Nelson wouldn't approve my exit. He visited once a month, smiled his fake smile, and reminded me how lucky I was to be in such a nice facility. He'd never authorize an emergency release. He'd say I was confused, that I needed to stay put. I made one call. "Get me Detective Gerald Rodriguez, Central District." Gerald's voice was rough with years of cigarettes and coffee. "Rodriguez here. Jerry, it's Harold Bennett. I'm calling in that favor from the Morrison case." There was a pause. "Harold? Jesus, it's been years. What do you need?" "I'm at Sunset Manor. I need out now. My daughter's in Central Hospital, and I know she didn't fall down any damn stairs." Gerald didn't ask questions. He remembered the night I'd taken a bullet meant for him during a drug bust. Some debts transcend paperwork. "Emergency consultation," he said finally. "I'll make it look official. 30 minutes. "Thanks, Jerry." "Don't thank me yet. Just be careful, Harold." When the hospital transport arrived 90 minutes later, the Sunset Manor manager protested, waving my admission papers. The transport officer simply handed him the official request form with Gerald's signature. I walked past him carrying nothing but my wallet and the clothes on my back, and now here I was, standing at my daughter's hospital bed, feeling the old familiar weight settle on my shoulders, the weight of a case, of a hunt, of a promise I intended to keep. I picked up Beverly's chart and scanned it with eyes that had read thousands of these. Ulnar fracture, multiple contusions, mild concussion. The injuries told a story I knew by heart. Beverly started the usual routine. "Dad, I'm just so clumsy. I tripped and—" "Stop." My voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "I've investigated domestic violence for 30 years. I know the difference between a fall and a fist." Her face crumpled. The lie died on her lips. And then she told me everything. Nelson Sullivan, 42 years old, works construction when he feels like it, spends most of his time at the Indian casino, the money disappearing faster than Beverly could earn it at her part-time job. the rage that followed every loss. His mother, Marie, a bitter 65-year-old woman who treated Beverly like hired help. His sister, Joan Sullivan, 38 and just as mean as her mother. "They've been getting worse for months," Beverly said, her voice shaking. "Ever since you got put in the home." Nelson said, "Now that you're gone, it's time I learned my place." The worst part? What they were doing to Dorothy, my 10-year-old granddaughter, quiet and scared. Joan's boy Stanley bullied her constantly while the adults laughed it off. "She needs to toughen up," they said. I felt that cold fury spread through my chest, but I kept my voice calm. "What about the money, Beverly?" Nelson working steady. She shook her head. "That's the weird part, Dad. About a year ago, I overheard Marie fighting on the phone with some bank. She was screaming about a trust fund and offshore accounts, something about money Nelson's father left that Nelson didn't even know about. She said it was untouchable, that no one could get to it. Interesting. Very interesting. Hidden assets, offshore trusts, financial manipulation. It was like Christmas morning for an old financial crimes detective. I looked down at my daughter, at her broken body and shattered spirit. "You're staying here. Dr. Rodriguez will confirm you. Have a severe concussion and memory problems. You're safe. I'm going to your house." "Dad, no. They'll hurt you." "Nelson," I said quietly, "is about to learn what happens when you corner an old cop and mistake him for a victim." The address led me to a 2-story house in a rundown part of town. From outside it looked normal enough, but when I opened the front door, the smell hit me first. Stale beer, rotting food, something sour and unwashed. The living room was a disaster. Empty pizza boxes, dirty dishes everywhere, carpet stained with God knows what. 2 women were sprawled on a sagging couch watching some reality TV show. The older one, Marie, I figured, barely looked at me. Heavy-set dyed blonde hair, cigarette hanging from her lips. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice flat. "Well, Beverly's not here. Kitchen's a mess. Make yourself useful." I set my small bag down and didn't respond. Then I heard it. A small choked sob from deeper in the house. I followed the sound to a small room off the kitchen. Inside, sitting in the corner, was Dorothy. She couldn't have weighed 80 pounds, pale dark circles under her eyes, clutching a headless doll. I was about to kneel down when I heard footsteps. A boy, Stanley Jones' kid, burst in, big for his age, mean twist to his mouth. He saw Dorothy and grinned. "Hey, stupid, you still crying?" He grabbed the doll from her hands. She made a small sound but didn't resist. "This thing's junk anyway." He started twisting the doll's remaining arm. I moved fast. 35 years of police work, muscle memory kicking in. I caught his wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to stop him. "We don't take things that don't belong to us, son." The boy dropped the doll and started wailing. I handed it back to Dorothy. The sound brought the women running. Joan Sullivan burst into the room, face twisted with rage. "Get off my son!" She lunged at me, nails out like claws. I sidestepped, caught her wrist, applied just enough pressure to a nerve point to make her hand go numb. She collapsed to her knees, stunned. "You're telegraphing your moves," I said calmly. "And your nails need cleaning." Marie appeared with a poker from the fireplace, swinging it at my head. I disarmed her without breaking a sweat, then bent the iron poker 45 degrees using the stone mantle as leverage. The screech of twisted metal froze them all. "This house is under new management," I said, my voice calm and matter-of-fact. "Rule 1, you don't touch Dorothy. Rule 2, you don't touch me. Rule 3, this place is a health hazard. Joan, you're on floors. Marie, you're on dishes. Stanley, you sit in that chair and don't move." Stanley opened his mouth to protest. I looked at him. He closed it. For the next 2 hours, I cleaned Dorothy up, gave her a bath, found clean clothes. I made her a bed in what used to be a guest room. She didn't speak, just watched me with wide, scared eyes. At 6 p.m., Marie tried her first play. She appeared in the kitchen with a package of ground beef that was gray around the edges, smelling faintly sour. "Make dinner," she said, dropping it on the counter. "Don't waste it." I looked at the spoiled meat, then at her. She smiled, a mean little twist of her lips. I took the insult in stride. I separated a small, fresh portion for Dorothy and myself, then dumped the rest in a skillet with half a bottle of ghost pepper hot sauce, the kind that comes with warnings on the label. At 7 p.m., I called them to dinner. Marie, Joan, and Stanley came in looking smug. They thought I'd given up. They loaded their plates with the meat I'd prepared. Dorothy and I ate from our separate safe portions. Marie took the first big bite. Joan and Stanley followed. There was a moment of silence. Then Marie's face went red. Joan started coughing. Stanley made a sound like a dying animal. "Water!" Marie screamed, lunging for the sink. They shoved each other out of the way, gulping straight from the faucet. Stanley was crying. Joan was gagging. Marie's eyes were streaming. I took another calm bite of my dinner. "What's wrong?" I asked pleasantly. "Too spicy?" Marie turned to me, tears streaming down her face, trying to scream, but nothing came out but a strangled wheeze. "Rule 4, I said. "Don't waste food." I was awake when Nelson Sullivan came home at 11:30. I heard the car first, engine too loud, brakes squealing. Then footsteps, uneven and heavy. The front door didn't open. It was kicked. "Beverly?" His voice was slurred, thick with alcohol and rage. "Get me a beer." He staggered in, 6 feet tall, broad shoulders going to fat, face flushed red, eyes bloodshot. He smelled like whiskey and cigarettes and failure. He saw me and stopped, squinting. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the babysitter," I said calmly. His face twisted. "You're that old bastard Beverly's always crying about." "Her father." "Correct. Get out of my house." "No." The word hung in the air. He wasn't used to being told no. He moved fast for a drunk man, arm swinging up in a wild backhand aimed at my head. I stood and stepped inside the swing, moving toward him instead of away. His fist passed harmlessly over my shoulder. I used his momentum against him, hands on his arm and chest, guiding him forward and down. He went sprawling over the coffee table, which collapsed under his weight. He roared, pushed himself up, lunged at me with both arms out, trying to grab and overpower. I sidestepped, simple footwork, nothing fancy. As he passed, I drove my elbow into his solar plexus, right into that cluster of nerves. The air exploded from his lungs. His legs buckled and he collapsed, choking and retching. "You know," I said conversationally, standing over him, "my daughter never fought back. Maybe she thought you'd change. Maybe she was protecting Dorothy. But I don't have those constraints." While he was gasping for air, I grabbed his hair and marched him down the hall to the guest bathroom, the one with the unflushed toilet crusted with filth. The smell was overwhelming. I shoved his face toward it. "You like living in filth?" I asked. "You like treating women like garbage?" He tried to pull back, but he still couldn't breathe properly. I held him there, his face inches from the bowl. "This is your house, Nelson. Your filth. Look at it." I reached over and flushed. The water swirled up, splashing his face. He screamed, or tried to. I released him and stepped back. He scrambled away, wiping his face, retching. "I'm calling the cops," he gasped. "Go ahead." 15 minutes later, there was a knock. 2 officers, a young one and an older one with gray hair. The older one's nameplate read Miller. Nelson pointed at me with a shaking hand. "That crazy old man assaulted me. Arrest him!" Sergeant Miller looked at me uncertainly. I was sitting in the armchair, looking like somebody's grandfather. "Ma'am," he started. "It's Sir, officer. Harold Bennett, retired detective, Central District." Miller's eyes went wide. "Holy hell. Detective Bennett, you worked the Morrison drug ring case?" "That's right, Sergeant. You saved my partner's life that night." I smiled. "Good to see you again, son." Nelson was sputtering. "What? No, he attacked me." Miller held up a hand. "Mr. Sullivan, let the detective speak." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, showed him the photos I'd taken at the hospital. Beverly's face, her arm, the bruises. "This is what Mr. Sullivan did to my daughter yesterday. She's in Central Hospital right now." Miller took the phone, his face going very still as he scrolled through the photos. The young officer looked over his shoulder and went pale. "Mr. Sullivan," Miller said, his voice flat and hard. "Did you do this to your wife?" "She fell down the stairs." Miller's jaw tightened. "Mr. Sullivan, you're lucky I'm not arresting you right now. These photos would make the DA very happy." He looked at me. "Detective, will you be safe here tonight?" "Perfectly safe, Sergeant." He nodded and left. Nelson stood in the wreckage of his living room, shaking not with rage anymore, but with fear. "Go to bed, Nelson," I said quietly. Sleep on your side. You'll breathe easier." He fled upstairs. The house settled into a new rhythm over the next 3 days. Tense, brittle, built on fear. Marie stopped barking orders. Joan kept her distance, still nursing her numb hand. Stanley stayed in his room. Nelson moved like a ghost. But I knew this wouldn't last. Fear, when it ferments, turns dangerous. I was proven right on the 4th morning. Marie appeared in the kitchen, her expression different, softer, almost apologetic. Every alarm bell in my cop brain started ringing. "Harold," she said, her voice syrupy with fake warmth. "I want to apologize. For everything." She wrung her hands, playing the contrite mother role. "I made you some tea," she said, producing a cup from behind her back. Chamomile, very calming, a peace offering. I took it, raised it like I was going to drink, caught the scent. Chamomile, yes, but underneath something bitter, chemical. I'd worked enough overdose cases to recognize crushed sleeping pills. "How thoughtful," I said, walking toward the table. My foot caught the chair leg, entirely on purpose, and I stumbled. The hot tea arced through the air and splashed directly onto Joan's bare foot. Joan screamed, jumping back. "You stupid old—" "My apologies," I said, voice quavering with fake frailty. "These old hands aren't what they used to be." Marie's expression flickered from fake sympathy to pure hatred, then back to the mask. "No harm done? Perhaps you should rest." That night, I positioned myself in the hallway where I could hear but not be seen. They were all there, Marie, Joan, and Nelson, voices low and desperate. "It's the only way," Marie was saying. "We can't have him here. He knows too much. If he talks to the police again, we're finished. So, what do you want me to do?" Nelson's voice was sullen. "You go in first. Knock him out. We'll follow with rope and duct tape. Tie him up, call Sunset Manor, say he's having a psychotic episode. Once he's back in that place, medicated, he won't be a problem. And if he fights back, he won't because you'll hit him hard enough that he can't." Silence. Then Joan. "What about the kid? Dorothy? She won't remember. And if she does, who's going to believe a traumatized 10-year-old? I'd heard enough. I retreated to my room, mind already working through the tactical situation. Stanley's closet yielded an aluminum baseball bat. I stripped the bed, arranged pillows into a human shape, then positioned myself behind the door. I pulled out my phone, set it to record video, and waited. At midnight, I heard footsteps in the hall. Nelson, trying to be quiet and failing. The door creaked open. He crept toward the bed, toward the pile of pillows. I stepped out and swung the bat into the back of his knee, not to break it, just to drop him. As he fell, I hit him again in the shoulder, targeting the nerve cluster. He went down, stunned. I worked fast, using the rope they had brought for me to tie him to the bed. Duct tape over his mouth. He was conscious now, eyes wide with fear and pain, making muffled sounds. I positioned him exactly where I'd been lying, then turned off the lights. In the darkness, I started recording and screamed in Beverly's voice, terrified, broken. "No, Nelson, stop! Help me!" Marie and Joan, waiting in the hall with weapons, heard this and rushed in. 2 figures silhouetted against the hallway light, Marie with a golf club, Joan with a heavy frying pan. They saw the bound figure on the bed, making muffled sounds, and thought it was me. "You old bastard!" Joan shrieked, raising the frying pan. "This is for everything!" The pan came down with brutal force on Nelson's ribs. The muffled scream was agonized, desperate. Marie swung the golf club like she was teeing off, bringing it down on what she thought was my prone form. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound of metal on flesh filled the room. Nelson was thrashing, trying to scream through the gag, but they were lost in their rage, finally hurting the person who'd humiliated them. I let it continue for 10 more seconds, capturing everything. Then I flipped on the lights. The sudden brightness was blinding. Marie and Joan froze mid-swing, weapons raised. Slowly they lowered their eyes to the figure on the bed. Nelson stared back at them, face bloody, eyes full of terror. The golf club clattered from Marie's hands. My, I said from my corner, holding up my phone so they could see the red recording light. What a loving family. I got the whole thing on video. Joan made a sound like a wounded animal. Marie's face went gray. I picked up the bedside phone and dialed 911. Yes, I need police and an ambulance. There's been a terrible assault. A mother and sister have just beaten their son nearly to death. I tried to stop them, but my voice broke convincingly. Please, hurry. I gave them the address and hung up, then looked at Marie and Joan standing frozen in the harsh light, their hands still stained with their own son's blood. Police will be here in about 4 minutes, I said conversationally. I suggest you don't run. It'll only make things worse. In the distance, sirens began to wail. The chaos was controlled, professional. Paramedics with stretchers, police securing the scene, Marie and Joan in handcuffs, sputtering desperate protests. He tricked us. That crazy old man set us up. Sergeant Miller arrived within minutes, face grim as he surveyed the scene. Nelson on a stretcher, face pulverized. Marie and Joan in custody. Me sitting calmly by the window. Detective, are you all right? I'm fine, Sergeant. I held out my phone. But you should see this. He watched the video in the hallway. When it finished, he shook his head slowly. Detective, you just solved our case. I certainly hope so. 3 days later, I sat in Beverly's hospital room, watching the news. The anchor reported, Nelson Sullivan remains in intensive care with multiple broken ribs and internal injuries. His mother, Marie Sullivan, and sister, Joan Sullivan, face charges of aggravated assault and conspiracy. Beverly turned to me. Dad, what did you do? I gave them enough rope to hang themselves, sweetheart. And they took it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Bennett, this is Robert Fielding. I represent Marie Sullivan and Joan Sullivan. I wonder if we might discuss potential resolutions. His voice was tight, professional, desperate underneath. I'm listening. The video evidence you possess is devastating. Our clients would like to discuss alternatives to trial. What kind of alternatives? Perhaps we could meet somewhere neutral. How about the ICU waiting room at Central Hospital? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The hospital meeting was perfect. Marie in a wheelchair, oxygen tube in her nose, looking 10 years older. Joan beside her, eyes hollow. Nelson wasn't there, still in intensive care. The lawyer, Robert Fielding, stood by the window, sweating despite the air conditioning. Mr. Bennett, thank you for coming. My clients would like to make an offer. I'm listening. Marie's voice was weak. What do you want? I folded my hands. 3 things. First, Nelson signs divorce papers immediately. Beverly gets full custody of Dorothy and half of all assets. Second, you pay Beverly $50,000 for medical expenses and pain and suffering. Third, I smiled. Let's talk about that offshore trust fund you've been hiding. The room went cold. Marie's monitor started beeping faster. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Marie. I spent 35 years investigating financial crimes. Bank of the Cayman Islands, account ending in 477B. Ring any bells? Dead silence. You have a choice, I continued pleasantly. Pay Beverly the $50,000, sign the papers, and I delete this video. Or I send it to the DA, the judge, every news station in town, and then I send your account information to the IRS. Your choice. Marie looked at Joan, at the greedy expression already calculating shares of hidden money she'd never known about. She saw she'd lost everything, her power, her control, her family. Pay her, she whispered to the lawyer. Excellent, I said, standing. I'll expect the paperwork within 48 hours. Divorce papers signed, custody agreement, and a cashier's check for $50,000. Once I receive all 3, I delete the video. The lawyer nodded frantically. We'll have everything prepared. One more thing. If any of you ever go near my daughter or granddaughter again, that video goes viral. Everyone will know exactly what kind of people you are. Understood? No one answered, but I saw the understanding in their eyes. The fear. 2 weeks later, Beverly was discharged from the hospital. We moved into a nice apartment across town, paid for with the settlement money. Dorothy had her own room for the first time in years, decorated with stars and drawings she'd made. That first night in our new place, Beverly made dinner while Dorothy did her homework at the kitchen table. Real homework, not hiding in corners. I watched them both, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Dad, Beverly said, stirring the pasta. I keep thinking about what you did, how you knew exactly what they'd do. 35 years of police work teaches you about human nature, I said. People like the Sullivans always think they're smarter than everyone else. They never expect an old man to outthink them. Dorothy looked up from her math problems. Grandpa, are the bad people really gone? I knelt down beside her chair. They're gone, sweetheart, and they're never coming back. She smiled, a real smile, the first one I'd seen from her. Good. I like living with you and Mommy. Beverly hugged us both. I love you, Dad. Thank you for saving us. I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you. Later that evening, after Dorothy was asleep, Beverly and I sat on the small balcony looking out at the city lights. You know what the strangest part is? She said. For years, I thought I was protecting Dorothy by staying. I thought if I left, Nelson would find us, hurt us worse. I never imagined you could make them destroy themselves. Sometimes the best weapon against bullies is their own arrogance, I said. They were so sure they had all the power. They never saw the trap coming. Will you teach me? She asked quietly. How to be strong like that? I took her hand. You already are strong, Beverly. You survived years of hell and kept Dorothy safe. That takes more courage than anything I did. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I could breathe again. My family was safe. Justice had been served. And sometimes, in a world that often feels unfair, that's all an old cop can ask for. The greatest battles we fight aren't always for ourselves. Sometimes they're for the people we love who've forgotten their own strength. Sometimes an old detective's experience and a father's love are the only weapons you need to set things right. Justice isn't always pretty, but it's always worth fighting for. Remember this: the bullies who seem most powerful are often the most fragile. They collapse the moment someone refuses to play their game. True strength isn't about how much damage you can inflict, but how much love you're willing to fight for, when the people who matter most need you to stand up.